Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Jackrabbit Illustrated. Thank you for joining us so much today on the Facebook and Twitter, as well as the FFN YouTube channel. As always, Jackrabbit Illustrated is brought to you by Kubota Dealers of South Dakota. With 10 locations across the great state of South Dakota, there's always a place near you to get into some orange equipment today. They have the best equipment that you may need for your home, farm, or acreage, and also any attachments or implements you may need for your skids to your tractor or even lawnmowers. Get into a Kubota dealer near you today and get into some orange equipment. I know Chad and Matt are in love with the BX garden tractors. Well, they're not garden tractors. They're just compact subcompact tractors. Yeah. With the blowers. If they wanted, they could get the cab on there with heat and AC. If you're being real bougie and just really want to actually enjoy snow blowing, that option's available. Get into some Kubota around near you. Thank you for joining us tonight on a very special edition of the B Team podcast. Of course, as always, I'm joined with Ben and Chad, but we have very special guest, the man, the myth, the legend himself of Sioux Falls Live fame, Mr. Matt Zimmer. Thank you for joining us here tonight late at night when you got a kiddo running around. Appreciate you making time in your night to spend a little bit of time with us. Also of the infamous Nobody's Listening Anyway podcast with John Gaskins that is increasingly popular by the day. But yeah, thanks a lot for joining us here, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, one of these days we're going to have to ask Gaskins to be on, or he's going to think we don't like him, which isn't the case.
I was just probably because
I'm sure he cares.
We'll bring him on if we're playing Nebraska. How about
that? We were joking about how with his new show coming up, we'll have to beat the Nebraska talk out of him just to make sure he doesn't bring up Nebraska every time he talks about anything football. But maybe if you just want to comment on that quick, for people that don't listen to Nobody's Listening Anyway podcast, they should, number one. But number two, if you just want to maybe quickly talk about like the big news that you guys had the other day.
Yeah, John Gaskins is joining Sioux Falls Live Forum Communications. We don't know exactly kind of what the format is going to be. Or I shouldn't say that. We know what the format's going to be, just how it's going to affect that podcast. Nobody's listening anyway, how it would be different from that, because that's kind of what they wanted to do is acquire that property a little bit. John's going to have a daily show, 1 hour to start, might get expanded at some point, but it'll probably fall somewhere between the podcast he does with me and the daily show he used to do on KWSN before the pandemic sadly brought that show to an end. So happy to have him on board. If you like the podcast, you'll like the show.
And you guys got a legit sponsor. Like, I'm kind of jealous we don't have a alcohol sponsor. We need one.
Found out he's getting some sort of free vodka or a kickback or something, because I just was listening to it. I don't listen to our own show very often because I do it. You? Right. But I listened to it the other day, and halfway in, he kicks in with this vodka ad. I was like, what the hell is this? I didn't know anything about it. So my agent going on that if I'm getting the runaround on that, because he didn't mention anything about it to me.
So I do have a message for everyone who was giving us the business about being late. I just want to say
that's for specifically Rev.
For some specific people, specifically Rev. That is a throwback to a Saturday Night Live skit, if anybody has watched that back in the day. But as always, the B Team, I do have to mention our show sponsor, or I'll be in trouble, and that'd be bad. I can't have the Podfather mad at us. But we are brought to you by Culvers of Brookings, Watertown. Better brand of beef makes Butterburger better. Everybody knows this. Get in there for your game day snacks and burgers and frozen custard. Get your concrete mixers up there. It's the way to go. I think it's a good luck thing. I went up and had Cubbies and Culvers on Friday before the game, and well, that game went pretty well. So I think that's a sign. I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious. So that's worth a try. I think that's going to be my new Friday mission, is to get up to Brookings and do that if I can.
I don't remember. Have we got your what's your go-to Culver's order?
Double cheeseburger basket. I maybe 20 times a year during football season, the Brookings Culvers.
Yeah. I was gonna say, that's spoken like a man who does have a customer. That was spoken like a man who does have a favorite order at
Yeah.
Culvers. There was no thought.
Get it? Yeah.
Your mic cuts out when we're still talking. Sorry about that. That's just how it's going to be with that. But I think Brendan has a tip, a Culver's hot tip for you. As far
You
as
gotta get the beer cheese dip for your fries.
I know nothing. Okay, I will do that.
It's awesome. It is. You won't regret it. I promise that.
I'll throw all the goodies on there I want to. Forum's paying for it.
Yeah. Hey, Sioux Falls Live's been going real well, I'd say. I'm a big fan. Between that and Mitchell Republic, I get a deal every 6 months and able to support your work.
Appreciate it. It's been a good move for me, to say the least.
Yeah.
Brian mentioned here, congrats to Mark. He did get the Shrine Bowl invite, which was a big deal. I haven't heard, is the Senior Bowl, did they start accepting non-seniors because of all this? Is that what I heard? Or is that not correct? So would Mark just not be eligible for the Senior Bowl?
Well, Mark's technically a senior. He's got another year
Right.
of, but he qualifies as a senior. I think after this year, I mean, I feel like I've been saying this for 2 or 3 years, that after this year, the COVID seniors are gone, but, now they're NCAA has given guys 7th, 8th, 9th years of eligibility. So, I mean, who knows how they classify that anymore. I've almost gotten to the point where I refer to guys as 2nd year, 5th year, 4th year. It's easier than junior, senior. What does that even mean anymore?
It's fair.
Gotcha. Well, let's why don't we quickly recap the Montana game? Zim, were you up there for it?
I was.
And what are your overall thoughts on it? I guess it was kind of interesting. There was a lot of, I mean, obviously on our podcast and stuff, kind of a consensus of how this game was going to go. It was going to be, Montana's going to score, 10 to 13 points, and SDSU is going to score 30 plus points, and it's kind of how it went. There was a little, like the game day, I kind of had that feeling like, man, what if Montana comes out and plays like really, really well? But it just didn't happen. So I guess, what are your thoughts?
It went almost exactly how I thought it would. Literally, almost. I predicted 35-10 on the podcast, and it was 35-10 with 2 minutes left. And normally there's no cheering in the press box, but I wanted so badly to be right and have the exact correct that when Montana was driving down the field, I was slamming my hand on the table like, do not let this. And then they score with 4 seconds left. So they covered the spread. So for any degenerates that had Montana, that helped. Otherwise, like I said, I was just pissed off that it ruined my perfect prediction. But yeah, I kind of thought, John and I talked about it last week. Like, how are you going to outscore them? That's just what it comes down to. You try and break these games down. Is when you got that defense and that offense, how are you going to score more points than them? There's a few teams out there that can do it, and Montana wasn't one of them. I don't think Montana played bad. And if you guys happen to catch any of Bobby Houck's press conference, he didn't seem too upset with his team. I mean, he was just like, hey, we played them tough. We didn't give up. We played hard. They're just, he kind of stopped short of saying it, but what he's obviously getting at was they're just better than we are. And that's what happens when you play a team that's better than you.
So we can confirm that you are not the one who pushed Bobby to go for 2 to hit the over with 5 seconds left in the game.
I went for 2 because I was so pissed off that they scored and ruined my perfect prediction. I had written 35-17 in my story, and then someone was like, no, idiot, they went for 2 at the end. It was 35-18. I missed it because I was too busy being mad at everyone for ruining that. But yeah, good for them, I guess. It makes it look a little bit closer. But anyone who saw that game, that it was not a close game. It was a blowout. I mean, it was 35-3 when Mark Gronowski came out of the game. And, that goes to show how well the Jacks are playing because, obviously Montana's not as good as they were last year, but that's still a pretty good football team. They had 9 wins, and they're still Montana. They're still coached by Bobby Houck. They still got a lot of those players that were on the national championship team last year, and I didn't expect them to win. I didn't expect them to threaten to win, but, it's the playoffs, and weird things happen, and they didn't have the sellout crowd that they've had for so many of their other home games. it was a really good performance, I thought, all the way around for SDSU, and just continued what they've been doing. I mean, ever since the 2 tough games, North Dakota State and USD, they've pretty much been housing everybody. Offense, defense, special teams. They're playing as well as they could possibly be playing right now.
Yeah, I was just a little surprised that they went for that last touchdown, even more so the 2-point, but completely perplexed by the 4 seconds on the clock squib kick. I guess they thought they were going to get a miracle and somehow still not have enough points.
Maybe someone really just wanted to make sure they covered. I don't know.
The super cover,
you just got to cover your back door, I guess.
So I'm with you, Matt. You had a little bit of I don't want to say maybe disagreement with Tanner on Twitter today or yesterday about the throw that he called Mark's best throw of the year. And I'm with you. That was not Mark's best throw of the year. However, Mark was in his bag that day. And I think this team, when Mark is on his game and Wildy is getting loose deep downfield while the running game's putting pressure on him, this team is, I don't want to say impossible to beat, but it's really, really hard to hang with this team when those guys are cooking back there. I mean, compared to the rest of the games this season, would you put this up there as Mark's best game, or would you say he maybe had a better one? I don't know, like the Missouri State game.
I mean, the stats don't jump out because they didn't need him to put up huge numbers, but what mistakes did he make? I mean, I think there was one 3rd down where he took a sack where I thought maybe he could have got rid of the ball, but that's when you're really picking the nit, when it gets to that point, and that's what you're saying he's doing wrong. I mean, 12 of 15, and I think of those 3 incompletions, 2 of them were basically throwaways because he was under pressure. He was, and it wasn't just this game. We saw early in the year he struggled a little bit, and I thought even then when he was struggling, it was more judging him against how good he's been in the past than that he was actually, not getting it done or anything. And you kind of had to assume, okay, new coordinator, not the same running backs, not the same receivers. And it's not that Griffin Wildy and Graham Goring and those guys aren't talented, that they aren't as good as the Yankee twins, but the Yankee twins were 6-year guys, had been there forever. I mean, the rapport that everyone had, from Zach Lujan to Ryan Olson to Mark Gronowski to Isaiah Davis to the Yankees to Zach Hines, all those guys, that's very rare to have what they had last year. And that's why last year went so almost easily. I mean, they were barely tested. It was just such an efficient machine, and it was probably foolish to think that it was going to be like that again this year, no matter how much talent they had. And to their credit, to Mark's credit, to Jimmy Rogers' credit, at no point in the season did you ever get any sense that they were kind of like, what's going on here? We don't know if we're going to be good enough. They kept saying all along, it's going to take some time. We're going to be okay. We're right where we want to be. And lo and behold, we're in December, and they are starting to look a lot like they did last year. I think Amar Johnson, Griffin Wildy, Angel Johnson, all those guys have kind of had some ups and downs a little bit. It hasn't come as easy for them, but I think they've figured out where they need to be, what the expectations are, what their role is, how to play with Mark, how to play within this system, which is a little bit different than it was in the past. And yeah, I mean, they're just clicking on all cylinders very quietly. This offensive line that moved on 2 NFL guys and 3 really quality starters is just as good as it was last year. And that's part of the reason I disagreed with Tanner that was such a great throw. He had all day to throw, I mean, you're golfing back there when you got that much time to throw. And if you keep giving Mark time to throw like that, he's going to keep doing that, So it's weird how you think back to the Augustana game or even the Southeast Louisiana game where they could run the ball all over the place but kind of struggled throwing it, to now it's that pick your poison that we've seen so much over the years. They really look good. And, there's obviously 3 other really good teams in this playoffs that could threaten to win the national championship. But when the Jacks play like they played against Montana, when they're at their best like that, it's just really hard to see how you score more points than them in a given football game.
Yeah, and I think that was really good to see. We talked about how, after the NDSU USD games, they've looked great, but against who, right? It was against, not great teams, going up against a good Montana team, now one that's, had their struggles throughout the year, but they've been playing better towards the end of the year, and seeing the offense do what they did against that team, it almost looked like they could do whatever they wanted to. if they wanted to keep running the ball, they could have. If they wanted to keep throwing the ball, they could have. And putting up 35 points in, I think, did Mark even play a snap in the fourth quarter? I don't know that he did. So over 3 quarters, I mean, yeah, the offense is clicking. The defense, obviously, it's just, we said this early in the year that this defense had a championship pedigree, and they've continued to prove that. And they play so well, and it's just so, we've talked about a no-name defense in the past, but this one is almost that, even more so, because they're so evenly, talented and spread out, and so many guys keep shuffling in and out. They're just so impressive. One thing that was interesting of note in this game was that, it looked like Chase Mason was ready to go. I don't know. Somebody said that he'd be ready to go for if he was needed for QB duties, but they weren't going to use him otherwise. I don't know if that was a publicly stated thing or not, but it'll be interesting to see if we see him utilized next game, or if they hold him back, in emergency situations only. But one of the things that I thought about is, are we holding him back due to, making sure that he's 100% healthy, or are we holding him back saying that, hey, if Mark were to go down, like, we need you to be healthy, kind of that, making sure you have that backup plan. I guess any thoughts on Chase Mason and how you think they'll utilize him going forward?
Well, I didn't think we'd see him in this game unless they needed him, and like you said, whether that meant because Mark came out and then he's the QB2, in which they probably would have brought him in, or just, hey, it's a tight game in the fourth quarter and we feel like we want to catch him off guard with one of our Chase Mason packages. Obviously, they had the lead that never came into play. When I was at practice last week, Chase was dressed, but he wasn't doing too much. And just from talking to Jimmy, he had kind of made it sound like, he's pretty good, but without coming out and saying it, he seemed to kind of hint to essentially that we're not going to use him unless we have to. This weekend, I mean, who knows how it's going to go. They beat Incarnate Word by 21 already, but we've seen how explosive that offense is. Both teams are totally different 4 months later than they were before. This could be a close game, and then maybe, you've seen how explosive, what a game changer Chase can be with his feet, with the threat of a throw. I mean, he's a really special athlete. I think too many people kind of think, oh, he's just the backup quarterback. No, he's a guy that would be the starting center fielder for the Nebraska Cornhuskers right now if he wanted to be. That's how good of an athlete we're talking here. And if you have a weapon like that, it's great to be able to use him. But if they are in a situation this Saturday where, again, they have a comfortable lead, if it's 27-7 in the third quarter, why expose him to that? That's how he got hurt in the first place, And we've already seen what happens when the Jacks get to Frisco and lose their starting quarterback and don't necessarily have the best guy ready to go after that. So I think they're very cognizant of that. I think plus, Mark has said over and over again, and nothing has changed. This is going to be his last hurrah with the Jacks. Chase is the guy next year. I think they want to do everything they can to make sure not only that he's, available as this sort of weapon or whatever, but that they're continuing to develop him to be ready to be the QB1 next year. So long way of saying, yeah, I think if they absolutely need him, he'll be good to go. But if they don't need him, why risk it?
Yeah. You're on mute, Brendan, as always.
Yep. Always on
I
mute.
keep doing that. See, there is some of it to me and I think maybe it was Ben, maybe I was talking with, or maybe it was Tommy or somebody else, but the offense is clicking. Why maybe mess with that? Why maybe mess with the continuity of working's right, or what's working well until you need to. Where if he is healthy, you keep him in your back pocket, and maybe it's almost Terrence Christian-esque when you go up to the Fargo Dome and all of a sudden Chase Mason them a bunch of times when they're not ready for it. I think that I that's just something I've been wondering if it something, it ain't broke, don't try to fix it.
Yeah, especially in the playoffs. I'm certainly not suggesting that Jimmy Rogers or anyone for SDSU has ever coached a game worrying about stats or anything like that. But you do in the regular season kind of feel like, well, we want to spread the ball around a little bit. We want to make sure this guy gets his touches. We want to make sure this guy gets involved in the game. I think in the playoffs, there's a little more of just win, And if the Jacks come out and run the ball 60 times on Saturday and Mark Gronowski only throws the ball 5 times, so what? Great. You win the game that way. I don't think that's going to happen. But if it played out that way, Mark Gronowski is the kind of guy, Griffin Wilde's the kind of guy, they're not going to be complaining after the game, oh, I only got 2 or 3 touches or whatever. They'll do what it takes. And we've seen that before. There have been plenty of games. I think it was a couple years ago, they had 400-something rushing yards in a playoff game. So it's interesting because you look at Incarnate Word's defense this year, and they weren't anything special. I think they gave up 20 points in like 7 or 8 games in a row or something. Jacks hung 45 on them back when their offense was quote-unquote struggling, But just when you think that means, okay, this will be easy, they held Villanova to 6 points and 140 yards last week. And I know it was rainy and shitty outside, and Jimmy alluded to that today, that was a part of it. But Incarnate Word still had over 300 yards in the game, so they were able to move it a little bit in the rain. For them to put that kind of defensive effort against Villanova, this team's won 10 games in a row. I mean, regardless of who they're playing and what the schedule looks like and what the stats are, 10-game winning streak's a 10-game winning streak. This is the number 6 team in the country. So, again, they're just going to do whatever it takes to win.
Yeah, 100%. Just wanted to go back and touch on, you mentioned the offensive line, and I think, like you said, that they haven't necessarily been talked about enough, but they're sneakily playing really, really well. They just, I think the biggest compliment for an offensive line is just to not get mentioned, and we haven't mentioned them. In the past we've had, issues with false starts, and it hasn't been a thing with these 605 Hogs. And so just wanted to make sure to touch on that again about how good they've been. And I think it's helped to see the tight ends develop too. I think that, there were some issues with tight end blocking earlier in the year. I think that's gotten cleaned up a little bit. Kevin Brenner, I think, is another kind of guy that doesn't get mentioned enough, but he's in on a lot of packages, and I think for good reason. I think the offense runs better with him in there, and so just wanted to touch base on those guys. And anything else from this game that we wanted to touch on before we move on?
I'm just curious to see, well, the Jacks are able to defend the pass, because when they played back in September, the Cardinals threw it all over them, and I think what was it, 31 of 38, something like that. And
yep.
You guys know well of Jimmy Rogers is usually pretty pissed off when his defense allows something like that, and he was to a degree. But I remember him being more like, "Wow, that dude's awesome." For him to go 31 of 38 against our defense, like, that's tough to do. And it was early in the year. You didn't know what they had, sort of. There's a little bit of, we don't have a lot of film to go off of, all this sort of stuff. And, 13 games later, they've only gotten better. That dude used to be a starting quarterback in the SEC, and not only can he throw the ball all over the place, he ran for 100 yards last week. He's athletic. He's a big dude, and he's got some FBS caliber receivers to throw to. They've got some good running backs. Again, I don't think the defense is on par, and that's where the advantage certainly lies with SDSU here. But you guys know, Matthew Sluka, Carson Wentz, Easton Stick. We've seen lots of quarterbacks over the years that have been the difference, where you think otherwise, hey, we can win this game, but a great quarterback can be. And, on the other side too, how many games did Taron Christian win by himself with SDSU? So anytime you got a playmaker like that, that's something you got to be aware of. He gives you a chance.
Well, I mean, look at Tarleton State and Abilene Christian, what they did in Fargo and Vermilion last week. I mean, a high-end offense can sneak some games out for you, or even Incarnate Word 2 years ago up in Fargo. I mean, it's a dangerous team if you are letting them sling the ball all around and let them get some momentum. Like, I think it's going to be really key to get Calzada off his game right away, because if he starts to get cooking, cold weather or not, it's not going to matter. Either they're going to get hot, and then it's a problem. The one interesting thing I did pick up on Zach McKinnell's Blue Blood podcast today. This is great. This is genuinely an insane stat. Nobody on the team on the defense has over 10 TFLs. And they went through, and I think they said actually nobody even has 9. But this defense generates a negative play on 10% of the plays ran against them.
Jeez.
That math doesn't make sense.
Ben made reference to it, whether you want to call it a no-name defense or whatever. We knew the linebackers were going to be really good. We knew the secondary was going to be really good. The D-line was kind of where the questions were, with so many guys, Kate Trevere, Ryan Van Merrill, Quentin Hicks, a lot of guys moving on. And then when you think about a good defensive line, what do? You look at the stats and go, well, who has sacks? Who has TFLs? Does anyone on the defense have more than 3 or 4 sacks? I don't think, and you just said nobody has more than 8 or 9 TFLs. So it's like, well, there's nobody elite on that D-line. Well, or they're all elite, they're all getting the job done. And this is obviously nothing new. Really, when SDSU kind of got over that hump from contender to elite team was when they stopped playing just the same 4 guys on the D-line every down and started, having 8, 9, 10 guys that they could rotate in, and all of a sudden everyone's better. But as successful as they've been doing that the last few years, I did kind of wonder this year, is there enough talent? Just because they lost so many guys and we didn't know, at least we didn't know, the coaches I'm sure had an idea. We didn't know how good those guys are going to be stepping in. They've been every bit as good as they have before. And here they are giving up 9 points a game again, just like they were last year.
And I would argue that the D-line specifically is better than last year. This feels more like the D-line when Caleb Sanders and company were wrecking the interior lines on opposing offenses and just causing havoc.
They're so disruptive, whether they're getting sacks, getting TFLs, it's the disruption. And Jimmy Rogers, as much as he's, proud of his linebackers because those are his guys, and he always talks about the secondary and how happy he is with that play. He has alluded a couple times to the development of that defensive line that they've been able to pick up right where they left off the last couple of years. I think that's what whether you want to say that's the best unit on the defense, whatever, that's the unit I think he's the most pleased with, to see them get to where they have this year.
How crazy is it that everybody else has made how good Adam Bach is look diminished this year on the linebacking core? Like, to me, it's not that Adam Bach has taken a step back. It's just the other guys that much better. And to say that after having the performance Jason Freeman did last year is just bonkers to me.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys who's almost a victim of his own success. He's so good and so consistent that you just take him for granted a little bit. Having said that, Caleb Francel's been a baller. I mean, he's all over the field, and just the sure-handedness, I guess, of his tackling. I mean, he tackles the way a shortstop gobbles up a ball in the hole, I mean, he just doesn't miss. And he was their nominee for Defensive Player of the Year. That's saying something, with Adam Bach having the career he's had, the production he's had, Dallas Beanham, Tucker Large, those guys. That goes to show you. I mean, Caleb Francel's been a first-team, all-conference caliber dude, and you said it. I mean, Jason Freeman and Isaiah Stallburd's on the New Orleans Saints right now. They lost
That's
2
true, right?
standing line on either side of Adam and Francel, and Graham Spalding's done a really nice job too. He's a guy who's been there forever, and he's very reliable, knows exactly where he's supposed to be. 3 seniors on that unit, and you can see it. They play like 3 seniors that know where they're supposed to be. They don't make a lot of mistakes.
Brendan, you mentioned that the weather won't matter. I disagree.
No, I said if Calzada gets hot and starts cooking, then it won't matter.
I think it's still going to matter. But one interesting thing that I'm interested to see is Jimmy getting a second chance at this Incarnate Word team. I'm sure he's not happy about how many points were given up in the first meeting, and so it'll be interesting to see what if there are any scheme changes or anything, or if he does things differently. I'm really excited to see what he does, because I think if we know anything about Jimmy, it's that he takes things personally, and I think that he probably looks at the Incarnate Word game and thinks, man, we gave up too many points. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he does with it. But
he did make a point to say today at his weekly press conference that when we played him the first time, we had 1 game of film to go off of, essentially, and now we have 13. And he didn't tip his hand or anything, but I did ask him. I said, okay, you play him that first game and the guy goes 31 to 39, he carves you up. I said, did you make adjustments specifically because of what he did to you that day? Or was it a little more just, well, it's the second game of the year. We'd be making adjustments either way. And he said kind of a little bit of both. And he didn't specify too much after that, but implying kind of like, well, it was early in the year. We were still kind of figuring ourselves out. But also, yeah, they carved us up 31-39. We had to do some things different. And now they have 13 games of film of this team. And I can guarantee you, Jimmy watched every minute of all 13 of those games. And I usually like his chances of coming up with a pretty good scheme when he's got that much time and that much material to go off of.
Yeah, a little credit to Bobbitt too, because I know he's definitely got his hand in there. So.
Right.
All of them.
Yeah. Last thing here, Zim, before we let you go, I don't know if you got spoiled by it in the comments, but have you seen the spread for this game?
I think I saw it was like 18.5 or 17.5, something.
Yeah, that's what it looks like, 17.5 on MGM right now. Who do you think covers that?
I mean, I'll take SDSU to cover. But, the Montana game's a perfect example. They were up by 32 with 6 minutes left and ended up not covering because of a couple cheap garbage time touchdowns. Again, someone on Montana must have really wanted to cover that. But I'll take the Jacks, but I won't be surprised if they don't cover it.
Gotcha. All right, well, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if you had any thoughts on the news with UC Davis.
News? I must have missed it.
They got added for all sports except football to the Mountain West.
Weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Right? There is a small rumor running around that they're concerned they would lose eligibility in the playoffs and that the football would be announced later. I'm not so sure how much sense that makes, but there's reporting coming out just now, 10 minutes ago, that they want Northern Illinois as the football only member and have extended their offer to Northern Illinois, and Northern Illinois is thinking about it.
Huh. Well, I mean, Davis makes sense. I guess I don't see the appeal of the MAC teams. I don't think they're any better than the upper level FCS teams. But if you're so hung up on optics and not wanting to add a FCS school, I guess, I don't know. Mike McFeely's going to be really disappointed. That's all I know.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good they are. It's their media market.
I hope they don't commit Harry Carey in the front yard up there in Fargo.
And one under or lesser known fact around here, Davis has 45,000 undergrads.
Yeah,
wow,
that's a Big Ten size school.
That is a big.
They can be whatever division they damn well please, and they have the largest endowment in the FCS besides Ivy League schools. I think they're bigger than some Ivy League schools. So Davis plus Sacramento makes a lot of sense for them.
Well, it'll be really interesting then to see if that is the real story here, that football is going to come out later. That almost makes more sense. Why would you? I don't really understand the alternative. But who knows? Weird shit happens in this, every day. So
you never know until everything's signed, sealed, and delivered in today's world of that
I
crazy
just wait when someone tells me SDSU is no longer in the Missouri Valley and the Summit League and FCS, I will write a story about it. Until then, I don't give a shit. I'll just keep going to the games.
So everybody leave Zim alone and shut the fuck up about it.
That's what he was trying to say, but you said it a little more what he was meaning, I think.
I'm here to translate for you, buddy.
I love it. Well, Zim, thank you so much for hopping on with us. We respect your time, and we really appreciate you joining us. Like we said, everybody should go listen. Nobody's listening anyway. Check out Zim's articles. Subscribe to Sioux Falls Live. Any parting thoughts?
Keep up the good work, you guys. Appreciate it. See you Saturday.
I appreciate it.
All right,
See you Saturday. Now, since we've kept him in the back room for a half hour, it is Andrew Markham from the Triumvirate podcast.
What up,
Stud hung in there very patiently. So I'm going to do an ad read since he's on here. We're brought to
Which one are you going with?
Brought to you by Culvers and Brookings.
No, that was last one. This one is Cubby Sports Bar and Grill, downtown's Brookings. They have the Italian nachos down there. We are getting close. I'm not sure what the exact number's at, but I've seen pictures flying all over Twitter of the Italian nachos that they have brought back that are all proceeds are going to help fight. When you're looking at the menu, maybe consider, do I want kids to die of cancer or not? I'm not saying that it makes you a bad person. I'm just saying that's something to take in consideration when you're ordering your food. And if you really, really are against kids dying of cancer, which I happen to be, post a picture and tag us and Cubbies in it. And we have $14 per picture going towards Alex's Lemonade stand, up to 50 pictures. So that's $700 worth of fighting childhood cancer. And every $50 is an hour of research. So I believe that would be 14 hours worth of research there.
And that's in addition to what the Cubbies is donating the proceeds from every Italian nacho purchase to Alex's Lemonade stand.
So get down to Cubbies, get Italian nachos. Hell, just get them as an appetizer. Share them with the family. I know it brings back a lot of college memories for everybody. Everybody I talk to is like, oh, everybody our age. It's like, oh, I miss those from college. Like everybody ate those in college. So get out and do it, baby. So anyways.
Can you put brackets on our age?
Right. Okay. Our age, except for Chad. How about that? Old balls in the chat.
What was it, Chevys back then?
Yeah.
No, God. Chevy's was, yeah. That's where the 9 was, actually. So
close enough.
It was Peelers.
Anyways, Andrew, thank you for joining us a second time. Obviously, and quick, Mark is still sitting at 25,742. We need to keep that number moving up, folks. I think it's like another $300 or $400 will get him an extra $1,000 because they don't count the Alex's the lemon top challenge photos towards the 5K. So we need to get an extra couple hundred in there, so that way we can get an extra 1,000 from Northwestern Mutual to get Mark. That put him probably to 27,000 with a dominating lead over all the other pathetic fan bases that we are just grinding into the dust, and I love it. So let's beat him by more. How about it?
I'd love to see the late money come in now, because at least even if it comes in now, we're gonna make it hurt.
Yeah, right.
We're gonna make him earn it.
Yeah,
it's like running up a bid at an auction. You know, a guy wants it really bad. We're gonna run it up. I don't even intend on buying it.
Ariel and I have done that a couple times. We intended to buy it though, but yeah, we definitely were the direct consequence of things going for more at the Jackrabbit Scholarship Auction.
I still want to know what you would have done with that.
My wife was involved, and I was unaware.
It'd have been at tailgates. It'd have come to every tailgate, that golf cart would have.
You would have had to buy a trailer.
Yeah, it would have been expensive. It'd have been an adventure, but I've done ventures before.
I love it.
I'm a venture capitalist, but not for making money for myself. I venture and spend money.
Yes, we appreciate Andrew being on. We wanted to get his perspective on Incarnate Word again, see where they're at and how their season has progressed since SDSU played them. Before we really dive into Incarnate Word,
we just keep putting the poor guy off.
I'm sorry. Do we need to?
He waited a half hour and they drop it.
He's like, screw you guys, I'm out.
Well played, sir.
So the problem is, the Podfather, the A team didn't touch on any of the other games, and he said that we would. And so I'm wondering, should we at least touch on the other games?
Yeah, Andrew can talk about those with us.
He watches FCS. He's not a one team.
They have a whole.
That's
they
true.
do their own poll and everything. They have a very nice poll. It's shiny and it's got a nice font
sheen to it.
Mm-hmm.
How's that compared to other poll? Oh, never mind.
No,
I admire their poll. Kevin's is shorter.
Couldn't help myself.
All right. Well, let's quickly look at the other games that happen.
He's chewing his. See, if you get a red beer, you have to chew it.
No, olives. I have like
shit beer. That's all
I have way too many olives in my red beer. But anyway, we have some games to talk about, and just making sure I got the right games here. Yep. I don't think we need to mention anything. Idaho Lehigh. That kind of went how we thought it would.
Yep.
Montana State whooping on UT Martin. the narrative now is, oh, geez, Tommy Malot's world beater, and how's anybody going to stop him? Let me remind you that UT Martin's specialty is stopping the run, and they are like 100th in passing defense.
He was 22 for 25 for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. Let's not downplay this.
I'm not downplaying
he
it.
Was awful.
I'm not literally saying he was awful.
It. I'm not literally downplaying it.
Sure sounds like you are. Anyway.
I'm not downplaying his performance. I'm downplaying the narrative that oh my God, Tommy Malot's the best QB in the world now, and
he wasn't even the best QB on his team last year.
Last year, he's playing a lot better this year.
He's playing better, but my point is, I'm just saying that let's cool our jets against a performance against a UT Martin team. Obviously, that was going to be their game plan going into that game. So, whatever. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Anyway, any other comments on that? On the Montana State UT Martin
game? I mean, I think it speaks a lot to Tennessee Martin's run defense. The fact that Montana State, of all teams, decided to throw the ball on them. Realistically, I mean, that's a shout out to them for that. Otherwise, I mean, it's not a shock. We know what the gap is, between the top title contenders and that. So,
all right, we'll move on from that one then. UC Davis just embarrassed Illinois State. We all kind of talked about how we thought the Illinois State was maybe a little bit in fraud territory, just based on who they played, and we knew that UC Davis was good, and UC Davis proved it. I think they reminded people that they are really, really good and that they are a title contender. I think the narrative had been that there's probably only Montana State, NDSU, SDSU for sure, and then USD was usually included as a contender, but UC Davis maybe got pushed to the wayside a little bit. But I think, with this statement win, I think UC Davis enters the conversation again a little bit, in terms of, being a potential title contender. What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, Miles Hastings, he saw Tommy Malot's 300 and rose it up to 400 and 3 touchdowns. And then Land Larson, he added another 3 touchdowns. It's crazy that those guys did what they did. I mean, obviously, y'all thought that Illinois State was on fraud alert, but I mean, to still put up those kind of numbers in the playoffs is pretty impressive.
Yeah, no doubt. I think the most exciting, I think everybody could agree, the most exciting game of the quarterfinals will be UC Davis and USD. Seeing what they do against each other. That'll be really interesting to see. Brendan, did you can you address what just happened there?
Well, I had
drinking some lemon icebox liqueur from Jackson Morgan.
Oh, close. It was the whipped orange cream, and I had about, I don't know, that much to finish in it, and figured I started drinking, and I was like, this is good, and I kept drinking it, and now it's gone.
That's the lemon that I use for lemon pudding shots. Sorry.
Just because they designed that little thing in there, like it's a old school jug, you don't have to use the stupid handle like you did.
Or you put it over your shoulder and
half of it was I saw your reaction as I was drinking it, and I'm like, well, I got to keep going now and see the look on his face. Maybe I'll throw Andrew off as I keep going. Andrew was stonewalled me though.
And not to break tradition, that is definitely somewhat of a dairy drink, right?
Right, it is.
Oh yes,
yeah.
I mean, that stuff's still good. If we can get them as a sponsor, I'd agree. We do need an alcohol sponsor. So if
working on it for next year
has any hookups, let us know. All right. We still need to, speaking of working on it for next year, I feel like I know there's the Fernson has their Jackrabbit beer.
We're already talking to him, Ben.
Okay, good.
They have approached us this time too. So
I really love it. We gotta get a JI beer. How freaking sweet would that be?
Approach me.
I like it.
There's some good ideas already thrown out there. So
Perfect. All right. Next up, Tarleton State definitely gave
Don't choke
USD
on
a
an olive.
scare. Yeah.
at least they have a hole through
We're all too far away to help.
them.
Especially me.
We'd have to
just
tell
stare
every
at
kid
Brian
wild
choking
watching
to
me
death.
just like go.
We're
It'd be the most
screaming,
B
trying to
team
scream
moment
for his
ever. I'm going to take him off screen, folks. He doesn't have a pulse anymore.
Yeah. Well, he's dead for
Any-
sure. Anyways,
Bring him back
this
for
was brought
garbage
to you by
time.
Northwestern Mutual. Hope you had life insurance.
You're right. Yeah.
Nice segue, Brendan. Love it. Keep talking. Might as well finish it.
Might as well finish it. They are our last segment sponsor, Northwestern Mutual, Sioux Falls. If you do, say, choke to death on a live stream from an olive, people have choked to death on live streams before, but usually that's a different type of site. Anyways.
Oh, no.
Where they're doing news and stuff. Don't be sick.
You can't.
You can't.
During an ad read? What's
I'm
wrong
sorry,
with you?
Oh, well, there goes a sponsor.
I'm
He
dying.
didn't even finish. Let him finish.
Anyways. No, Ben's still alive.
I met you.
But no, in all seriousness, Northwestern Mutual, go talk to them if you have for all your financial needs. They will talk to you for free and really get you set down the right path for things like life insurance or just financial planning in general. I'm sure if you brought like your paperwork for your work's 401k and everything like that for that sort of stuff, if you're just throwing a random amount of money, go down, talk to them. They'll get you set on the path that is actually set right instead of hope and prayer, which is the way I used to do it. And now that I met with a financial advisor, my life is a lot easier. It was a huge weight off of my shoulders. So head down to Northwestern Mutual. They will get you set on the right path. And obviously they are the sponsor of Alex's Lemonade Stand. So thank you so much to everything they do with that as well. Really work well with us. Chris has worked with us on and donated to the pudding shots and everything else. He's a real stud about helping fight childhood cancer with Alex's Lemonade Stand. So thank you so much, Northwestern Mutual. I apologize for my awful joke. That was it just kind of fell out of my mouth. Anyways, how about footballs?
I also I enjoy how like I usually listen to the podcast on like 1.2x or 1.25x just so they go a little faster. But for some reason you're able to like do that with your voice naturally. Yes, where like you just all of a sudden start talking at 1.25x, which is weird.
And then he sounds like Alvin on 1.25x.
Yeah.
You just did. Yeah, you went from I'm Thumper to I'm Thumper, and here we go. And this is what we're going to say. And we're going to get it all out of here real quick.
You know, if I was a rapper, that's called talent. But here I get made fun of.
Yeah. Anyway,
Did we bring on a special guest?
Right.
Well, we're getting there.
Hey, one more thing on Davis too.
Yeah.
Coming from a place with absolute terrible attendance, I loved what Plow, whatever, however you say the head coach's name. I loved what he had to say about their attendance. Pretty much calling out the fans, saying like it was absolutely terrible that they didn't want to show up for the game. They had been there all season and don't want to show up when it comes time for the playoffs.
Damn straight.
Yep.
We're dealing with it here too. I will say our crowd was pretty good, but it obviously could be a lot better.
We got $10 tickets again this week, but I'm afraid we don't have the sales that we had last week.
Which is crazy how many people don't know about $10 tickets.
Right.
Because,
well, I'll be honest, dude. I'm driving around Sioux Falls. There's nothing around Sioux Falls. I don't know what marketing's doing, but they need to do something more than an email campaign.
You're going to get an email for season ticket holders? And I didn't see mine.
And
I think there was, but yes, like it's not enough to just say, "Hey, Jack's fan that already knows about everything Jack's related. Did you know about $10 tickets? Yeah, we already know. No, go tell the rest of the people in the area about it." And I completely agree.
We're not selling hand knit crocheted sweaters here. Word of mouth is not enough to get it done to get 20,000 people in the stands. We need to do something a little bigger than that, or, buying Facebook ads. We got to get a little bit more aggressive on that front, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, it's not like it's Scentsy oils. Don't do
I
a
agree.
sticker on the back.
Tell
of
your friends
car.
and give me 10 recommendations of who I could talk to. Give me 10 referrals.
I mean, we
All
could
right.
try it.
I mean, in all seriousness, though, do talk to your friends, your family, your neighbors. My neighbors go almost exclusively to the late cold weather games with us.
And they love
that's what
them.
they go to, and they love them. They love them. You never know who is going to like going. We reached out to our friends down in Platte who have a bunch of kids, and they come to the late game. They come to the late season games, and they brought like 8 kids, like 2 whole families with a bunch of kids and everything. Just tell people, just bring it up to anybody you know. So what? They say, no, I'm not interested. Okay, who cares? Ask them next time. Especially if they say, no, I'm busy. Ask them until they say, no, I don't want to go. Then you can stop harassing them. But until then, harass those people. Bring it up. Maybe don't annoy people at work, but your friends, family, all that stuff. I'm assuming most people have more friends than I do, but that's not terribly difficult. But
I don't know him at work too. All right, we need to get through these games. Tarleton State gave USD a scare. This one I thought was interesting in the sense that Tarleton State, they only lost by 10, but they had 3 interceptions to make that happen. It would have been interesting to see if they would have protected the ball a little better, if they could have pulled off that upset. USD, it'll be, like we said, this will be a real fun matchup to watch. Mercer, Rhode Island, that game was very low scoring. Yeah, exactly. Snooze fest is right. Mercer pulled that one off. Abilene Christian gave NDSU a little bit of a scare, but I think we all knew how that one was going to turn out. NDSU, I think, rattled off like 31 points straight at some point.
Ended up outscoring them like 41-3.
Yeah, which is kind of wild. Villanova and Incarnate Word. I guess, Andrew,
Snooze fest.
tell us about that game. Another snooze fest?
Yeah, I mean, heavy drizzle. Funny enough, I had posted on Twitter on Saturday that it was colder here in San Antonio than it was actually in Brookings during y'all's game. Rainy. What's that?
It was nice and warm here. That was a warm day for us.
Gorgeous. It was gorgeous.
Yeah, 40, I think 42 degrees and like a heavy drizzle. Just a lot of drop passes, a lot of things that didn't normally happen. And 450 yards on 13 points. I think there was 2 drop balls in the end zone that were wide open receivers. It was weird. It was a weird game. But the defense showed up, and it's playoff football, right? Do what you got to do. Get the ugly win when you need to, and keep moving.
So you're
I'll survive in advance.
So you're saying the Incarnate Word's offense struggles with not
Rain.
ideal weather. Oh, rain is it? All right.
That was our first rain game this year.
How do they catch the ball with cold fingers?
Stick them like the replacements.
Stick them on it. I know.
No, I mean the weather doesn't look too bad. There's a forecast for about a half inch of snow on Friday night, and then game time it looks like 25 degrees, feels like 19 with a little bit of wind, but definitely not too bad compared to what we've had in the past. I think the wind is like, I don't know, around 10 mile an hour or something like that. So not.
I will bet 5 tacos that some of the Incarnate Word players do the shirtless, I'm hard in the cold pictures before
Guaranteed. That's like asking.
That's a bad omen. It is a bad. Every team that does that, it never works out.
Undefeated.
I know. Trust me, I know.
But I just gotta.
Remember,
Go out there with
I've lived up
Arkansas.
north and down south. So
That's right. He was a Youper for a while, so
Yeah,
for 2
he
years.
knows the cold, don't you know? You betcha.
that's the non-annexed part of Wisconsin.
Ugh.
The Rev says that Incarnate Word's offense struggles with good defense.
So
Care to repeat
that is a question I wanted to ask Andrew. Just looking at the schedule and how this went out, there was some games that really were closer than probably a lot of Jacks fans expected them to be, especially towards the end of the season. You know, Southeast SLU, that was a close game. You know, Stephen F. Austin was a close game, although I think they are one of the better teams in the Southland. East Texas A&M wasn't a complete dog walking, and you know, I didn't watch that game, so that could be one where they came back with some garbage time touchdowns. I could be completely off base. What is that more Incarnate Words just relying on their defense more, or what what led to those sort of results?
SFA game. That defense just gave us fits. We couldn't do anything to stop Bobino and some of the other guys on that front line from getting back up to Calzada. We have one of the best pass protection lines, and it did not show up that game. Southeastern. That was, I think, only our second time in 6 showings at Strawberry Field that we've came out with the win. So Southeastern's normally our kryptonite. SFA is just a damn good defense. And then East Texas, I think they were already 1 foot out the door looking at playoffs. Honestly, some of the way the players were kind of handling themselves that day just looked weird.
Gotcha. Anything else in terms of, you know, the way, you know, Incarnate Word's defense? You know, obviously they held Villanova to 6 points, but obviously that was in some rough weather. What are you seeing from the defense, and how do you think they'll fare against a South Dakota State team that they, you know, when they were here, they gave up 45 points?
Yeah, I mean, turnovers killed us late in that game for sure. Y'all won the turnover battle in that game early in the season. Our defense as a whole, they play as a team, really. You don't see any one guy really stick out. The entire team, when you look at stat lines for the most part, normally it's everyone's within 2 to 3 tackles of each other outside of the D line. So they just play as a unit. And one of the big things that really hurt us going down the road at the end of the game with y'all was they just got wore out when the offense turned the ball over and they had to come back out quickly. Y'all are physical, man. And when they got to come back out quick, it's rough.
Yeah, I think that'll be a key for this game is for number one, Incarnate Word to get the SDSU offense off the field quickly. The third down success that SDSU had against Montana was ridiculous. I think they were like 6 of 7, 7 of 8 at some point in the game. They just were staying on the field. So, you know, Incarnate Word's going to have to have better third down defensive success. And then also your offense. I think it's going to be key to keep them on the field longer because, like you said, you just get worn down playing a team like SDSU. And I think that's the question does Incarnate Word have the offense that can sustain drives like that? I mean, they had some success against SDSU in terms of, you know, long plays. But, you know, I guess, have they been able to, you know, run the ball well, sustain drives well, you know, since SDSU?
As far as our offense, man, it depends if we can sustain drives. The that's been a big thing. Is we have some explosive type guys that there's sometimes you can't help it. We'll score fast, and that's a detriment at times too for the defense. As far as moving it down slowly, I don't know if we have that. That's just the way we are. Even against y'all, we couldn't run the ball. Against everyone else that we played this year, we moved the ball pretty frequently, and we're about 50-50 in most games. If you look at like the total rushing attempts versus total passing attempts this year, we're almost right at 50% on each side. So, but outside of you guys, man, y'all stuffed the run. I think we had like 67, 70 yards, something like that, total rushing. So it was insane.
Pretty
Yeah,
standard for this defense.
I was going to say, I just went through a bunch of your games here looking at rushing attempts compared to passing attempts. And I was going to ask if there's been more emphasis, because it seems like towards the end of the season, because just because you see that they threw 30 passes doesn't mean they didn't rush the ball 30 times with how up tempo they are. Part of the reason they're going to have more pass attempts is the offense is so up tempo. You're trying to get as many plays as possible, and that they're going to, because they have more plays, they're going to have more pass attempts, even if it is 50-50. And I noticed in these last 5-6 games, it was very balanced in attempts compared to run and pass. And it looked like that kind of had to be abandoned, obviously, in the Jacks game. Do you think that was something that has been emphasized more towards down the stretch here, that they realized after the Southern Illinois game and the SDSU game they need to be more balanced? Or do you think that was just a cause and effect of the Jacks defense forcing Incarnate Word to have to pass a lot more?
I mean, I'd say a pretty good call on cause and effect of y'all forcing the hand, that and getting behind. I mean, once you get behind, we kind of got to press, and that's what led to some of the turnovers. Guys pressing for those couple extra yards, fumbling the ball, those types of things kind of hurt us. When we did move the ball well, it was a lot of the RPO stuff. If y'all remember, even the tunnel screen was an RPO tunnel screen. So, and that was the one big play that y'all gave up that everyone on Twitter and Facebook were saying, I don't remember the last time SDSU's ever given up a tunnel screen for a touchdown, because y'all had corners that just blow it up. And if I remember right, it was a RPO where he was reading it, and then finally let it rip to Jalen, and just Jalen did what he can do and ran it.
That dude's a special talent. One thing I do recall, and Jimmy brought it up in his press conference today, is the speed with which they run play after play after play, the tempo, I guess. That's something we'll have to contend with it. That's something that they have continued throughout the season, right? I mean, I haven't been able to watch too many other. That's something we should expect. So folks need to pay attention.
That is something too in the cold, where I don't know if anybody, how many people have gone running when it is 20 degrees. You can lose your wind quick when it's cold like that outside. So that is going to be something to keep an eye on during that game, and really important for the Jacks to get Incarnate Word off the field quick.
It's because the sinuses freeze up.
Yeah, well, and that'll be interesting. Not only can SDSU keep up with that, but can Incarnate Word continue that pace in the cold? I think that's a factor too.
Yep.
They'll try. I'll definitely tell you that. They're not afraid to give it a go.
For sure.
I'm sure Incarnate Word the players are going to be sick to death of hearing about the cold.
Right.
And I do believe that it is being overplayed in this game. I honestly, the teams that I have seen affected the most by the cold end up being teams that are from a colder climate, so we assume they'd be fine, and then they show up and the Plains cold is different. It is different. I mean, we have Montana State fans complaining about the weather and conditions when they came out for the semifinals.
What
But
was,
when
what
I
was
think,
the wind chill that day?
I think at kickoff, what was it? 0 or
Yeah.
below 0 that day.
Yeah.
And it was a night game. So by the time it was third quarter, you were cracking a beer. And if you didn't have your mouth on it, it just froze. It's like
100%.
immediately if you didn't chug it. It was wild. That was the coolest game I've been at. It was a lot of fun. But like I've seen the teams I've seen fold the worst was like Illinois State came out for a game in the cold at Coughlin, and you could tell they wanted no part of that. They wanted no part of it. But Southern teams, I think sometimes they hear so much about it that they're kind of ready. I can't remember a lot of Southern teams that have collapsed, but in the cold. But think of like William and Mary at Montana State. William and Mary isn't from that cold, that warm of a climate. Like that shouldn't happen. They play in the CAA. They play against Maine. Like that shouldn't happen, and they collapsed. But then Coastal Carolina went out to Montana in the cold and were perfectly fine. So I think somewhat the cold could be overrated. I will be keeping an eye on, how the kickers and receivers adjust to catching with a cold ball. That will be interesting to keep an eye on, particularly the kickers, because that is like punting a rock. And I'll be curious to see how they adjust to that, and you're coming in.
For a punter.
Yeah. And there's wind. There will be wind. It's South Dakota in the winter now. There will be 10-mile wind at least. It's just part of life. But I do think the weather factor is being overplayed a little bit. I mean, could it potentially be a thing? Sure, it very much could be. Do I honestly think it will be after Incarnate Word has to hear about it for the last 6 days? Earthquake. We're all going to die.
I need to mute you, man.
I'm good.
Yeah, our punter from our first game against y'all tore his hamstring, so he's done.
Oh no.
So since I think it was the SIU game right after y'all. Since then we've had to go with another punter. So
he's been doing okay.
Yeah, I mean, averaging right around 40 yards, just hang time and let our guys get down there for the most part. So knock on wood, that's what he does.
Right. That is an underrated thing where if a punter struggles with a cold ball in those conditions, that can really skew a game. If he's all of a sudden kicking at 30, 35 yards because it's a rock and you don't want to kick it, or, it's a rock and it's in your head a little bit and you shank it because that's such a mental thing. That I think is where in the margins the weather can make a huge difference, where suddenly you're getting a lot better field position than you would have had it been warm because of that sort of stuff.
Right.
Just had to address this comment. Brian says it's not the price. People don't want to sit outside in the cold.
If you don't sit.
Well,
I never sit.
What is the Fargo people's excuse then?
For last weekend when it was 70 in there and they had less people than us?
Just a curiosity there.
By 3. That's fun. It's fun.
Winning by 1 is still winning.
So Zach is coming up, huh?
What?
Zach
That's
Carlton?
a question for you, Andrew.
Yes, yeah. Zach will be up here. I think Neil has his in-laws Christmas that they're doing that on Saturday, so he can't come. And then my wife is graduating with her nurse practitioner's master's, so I can't come. I'll actually be in DFW area scouting out the bars and everything.
There we go.
Nice.
So are we supposed to get him drunk or what's the deal?
You don't drink, man.
Oh,
He's the fun. He's the designated DD when we go to Frisco.
There you go. Well, he's fun to have around for that.
Absolutely. No, he's a good dude, man. He'll talk football and everything with y'all, and I'm sure if he sees y'all up in the stands, he'll shout out and give y'all a holler. So
good deal. Yeah, you'll have to tell him where we tailgate and have him stop by.
Oh yeah.
He messaged me on Facebook, so I'll tell him he's going to stop by the tailgate. I'm making brisket in honor of playing the Texas team. That and Seth Meyer. Shout out Seth, helping us out. He donated brisket, so We'll
Heck
be
yeah,
cooking that
thanks,
baby
Zach.
Friday night and bringing her up. 6 a.m.
Do you do a base or no base?
A based?
A base.
No.
A base to it, mustard or
No,
Yeah, mustard binder.
Mustard?
yeah, mustard.
Mustard binder, salt, pepper, garlic salt.
Yeah. My
The
man.
GSP.
At least
So
you
don't
know
have
the
much
right
mustard.
way.
Yeah, I do a Texas style, man. It's my jam.
Yeah.
That is my jam. I've worked
A
on
few
it for
hours
many
in the
years.
old oven, and it's great.
I'll fight you. I swear to God, I'll kill you. You tell people I make it in the oven. Oh my God. No, I throw it on the pellet grill and it turns out pretty good.
So Tucker was out most of the game against us, right? If I remember right, he went out in like I think it was the first quarter or second quarter he went out, and that's when he was battling everything.
Yep, Tucker Large. That is something that having him for hopefully the full game will make a big difference. He's just so good in pass coverage as a safety.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I would expect, I would not be surprised, I'll say it this way, that if Tucker Large gets an interception in this game, he's just so smart that, and Calzada is very, very good. I enjoy watching him play. He can sling the ball like crazy. But I think, he has a propensity for throwing those kind of moon balls a little bit. And I wouldn't be surprised to see one of those get picked off. But I was going to ask you, outside of what we've talked about, are there any other keys to this games in terms of how can Incarnate Word win this game? What do they have to do to have a chance in the end?
I mean, it's the same thing that you said about our offense. Get y'all off the field fast and let our offense get back on the field and be explosive. Man, we couldn't. I think Griffin had 10 receptions against us and 100 yards, right? And couldn't cover him. Left tight ends open periodically throughout the game at key moments. We got to be able to cover that backside leak on a tight end. It's going to take everything, honestly. Yeah, I mean, y'all are a good ball club. Y'all been doing it for a while. Jimmy knows what he's doing, and he has the right guys around him. So, and Mark's definitely a above average quarterback as well. He had a hell of a game against us. I know that. And then I think after that game is when y'all started having some of the offensive woes. But everyone was saying Mark's not the same. And I think it was just some gelling issues, but he showed out against us and he looked every bit the part that he did the last couple of years. So I think they're just going to have to play a perfect game. And then even then, you never know. It's football and it's playoff football. So, and we saw what happened when we played NDSU. Sometimes when you got a lot going your way, besides kicking field goals, the ball just doesn't bounce your way sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's another key, honestly. Kicking field goals is, we know that Incarnate Word's going to move the ball. We're not just going to shut them down, but will you score touchdowns when you get into the red zone? I mean, that's a huge, huge factor. Is if you're kicking field goals, you got no chance. You got to convert those red zone possessions into touchdowns. One other thing, are we going to see Kittle throw some fits on the sideline again? He was pretty animated the last time he was in Brookings. I featured him on JAI. I don't know if you saw that. But
Yes, you did.
I mean, he's an emotional coach. Obviously, he's from the program and he's a former player, so he's going to have emotions. He goes to bat for his guys, and he'll speak his mind and let it rip. And all the way I've been on the sideline where I've heard him go all the way to the point where a ref goes, "That's enough," or a flag's coming, and he goes, "All right, but I'm just saying." and he just walks off. So he pushes the limit, and he pushes it hard sometimes, especially in an emotional game, especially playing the number one team in the nation in week 2 there. He's going to be pretty emotional. He wants it. You can tell he wants it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think he's a good coach.
Oh,
sure.
100%. Yeah.
We
but
like him.
I think just the experience that people in Brookings had with him last game, I'm pretty sure they'll remember it, and I would be really surprised if he doesn't get booed at some point for when he's during one of his rants or something like that towards the ref. So
Absolutely.
It'll be interesting to watch.
And the funny part is he won't say anything outside of the bounds attacking someone personally. He'll just tell the refs how it is and what he feels is the slight against either his player or his team. So he'll quote unquote what a fan would say cry. He'll cry, but it's in a professional way. He's not your old school 80s 90s head coach that's gonna just be quiet and nod his head like, okay, you missed it.
Yeah. No, I love a guy that goes to bat for his players. But we do Alex on our podcast is a ref as well, and he mentioned how he was surprised that Killa didn't get penalized. I think there was a couple times where he was like on the field and stuff, and that he was kind of surprised he didn't get a flag.
He was on the field a bunch.
Yeah, he was pretty heated that game.
Yeah, so we'll see if he.
I'm a ref down here as well. So
are you?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what did you flag them? Maybe.
I probably would have got to that point where I said, "This is it."
Yeah.
You've used your goodwill.
Right.
I will say this with Killa. I fully expect them being Incarnate Word to be doing everything they can to score touchdowns, going for it on fourth.
Mm-hmm.
If they're across the 50 or at the 50, I will not be surprised to see him go for it on fourth down, even if it's a 4th and 6, 4th and 7. Just everything to keep drives alive and get into the end zone. I fully expect that to happen.
And 50 balls, hoping for flags, that kind of stuff for sure.
Another key will be what Zach does with his legs. That's going to be huge. He's slowly creeping up. I think he's just shy of 500 yards rushing, which, I mean, outside of Lindsey Scott, we don't normally have quarterbacks that run a lot. So,
good doctor.
But he's pretty quick. He's deceptively fast, kind of like how Arch Manning is. He'll get out there and run with the receivers sometimes, and you're like, he's got speed, and it's impressive. So, lately they've been picking up a lot more RPO stuff. So, look out for RPOs. That seems to be what has caused a lot of explosive plays for us.
Yeah, and historically speaking, the Jacks have not been great in the quarterfinals. They've had a lot of tough games in the quarterfinals. Villanova last year, Holy Cross the year before, which stands out in everyone's mind since you brought up Calzada running. Matt Sluka gave us a hell of a time with his legs in that game on a frozen tundra. So that would be everyone's nightmare there, is the quarterback getting loose like that and giving us fits.
Yeah. And I mean, one thing we haven't mentioned, you mentioned the struggles in the quarterfinals, is the potential. Now, I feel like we don't mention this anymore because we know that Jimmy coach teams haven't really done this, but I mean, there's a potential to look ahead to the potential semifinal matchup with NDSU. Wanting to go up to Fargo and avenge that loss, and so our guys will definitely have to maintain that focus and make sure they take Incarnate Word seriously and take care of business. I was going to ask you, has Waldhall, has he continued the touchdown celebration, or was it just a one-time thing, the one that went viral?
Just a one-time thing, and then he changes it up every game now. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, it's been fun. Him and Roy change it up and make something new every game. So it'll be interesting. Maybe he'll bring it back.
I could not believe I think it was on Monday Night Football when they showed it, and they're like, a high school game. I'm like, come on, man.
God, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but we even had Kirby Voorhees on our team imitated it for one of the games, so that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I saw that. I think him and was it Amon Ra? Amon St. Brown? Yeah. Jalen sent tweets to both of them saying like great form outside of whoever it was for the Falcons that did it. He was like outside of so and so, everyone seems to have pretty good form and doing the celebration.
I love it. Good deal. Well, anything else? I mean, we'll preview the rest of the games on Thursday night at Scared Money Don't Make Money, 8:30 Thursday. Anything else, Andrew, before we take off here?
No, I mean, hopefully DT's back for us at running back. He's been he sat the East Texas A&M game for sure with either a bruise. I think someone was bruised in his arm when he's spinning back fisted the ball on that fumble recovery against SFA. Huh. I think he bruised something either in his arm or in his hand. And then last week against Nova, he was a game time decision. So he'll probably travel, dress, and be a game time decision. But if he plays, he's like a Darren Sproles type of back, just as good receiving as he is running. But he's 91 yards away from 1,000 yards, so it'd be fun to see him get to 1,000.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
And he's muted again, folks. He said, "Gosh darn."
Gosh darn. Real quick for the people who don't know, where can they find you and all your triumvirate stuff?
Twitter. We keep it all to Twitter for the most part. We just 3 dudes that played college athletics, 2 football and myself baseball, and we just we enjoy doing the poll portion and voting on end of season accolades and following as much football as possible. So normally on any given Saturday, I'm watching or rewatching close to 13 to 20 games. So
the guy that does the compressed ones on YouTube helps get a little bit more film in too. So
right.
Yeah.
So
perfect.
Beyond that, yes, it is a bright and early tailgate. They're saying that the lot's open at 8. But I can tell you from personal experience, they aren't there at 6. So I will be. Ain't nobody going to be there to stop me at 6, I bet. So I'll be set up and partying. I don't know about you guys. I don't care if I got to sit in a lawn chair by myself drinking a beer with a boombox posting my feet up on it. I'll be there. So we're going to have a time.
I just checked the FCS Triumvirate Twitter. And you guys have your playoff prediction, and you guys predict Montana State facing USD and SDSU facing NDSU, with SDSU beating NDSU and going to the championship and beating Montana State in the championship. I have to ask, was that your prediction as well, or were you a little bit off on that?
No, that's so myself and Zach, actually, that was our exact prediction. Neil had it USD Montana State and USD winning, and I think he had, don't quote me because I think
he might have had NDSU.
I think he did. I'm trying to pull it up real fast to see. Oh, man.
Brian must be way behind on the feed.
He must be.
Yeah, right.
That was like 15 minutes ago.
Has to be. He's on Canadian internet, probably. So.
Plus, I don't think he responded to my shot at Fargo, but
Gay North Dakota.
That's
Canada. Yeah, so Neil had it NDSU South Dakota as the final, and NDSU winning it. Gross.
well, that's fine. He can be wrong.
Absolutely, and it's hard to beat a team twice. So the same rationale that Zach and I used for you guys and NDSU in a marker rematch, he used as the national championship with NDSU against South Dakota, being that it's hard to beat them twice. So
Gotcha.
Oh, I agree. If
Fair
those
enough.
two teams were to face off again, I do not think it's going to be as close.
no, it'll be like last year.
And NDSU will be out for blood.
It'll be exactly like last year's playoffs.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Appreciate your
Absolutely.
insight. And we shall see how it goes on Saturday. Do you care to make at least pick the spread? Do you think Incarnate Word covers the spread?
I think they cover the spread. I would say, man, I'd say between 10 to 13 that y'all take it.
Gotcha. I like it.
Two possessions for sure.
1 point win, I'd be happy with.
That's
Yep.
survive in
Anyone's a good
advance,
win.
right?
Yeah.
That's right. Well, tune in for Brendan and I's prediction on Thursday night. Brendan, are you on a podcast tomorrow night too, or it seems like you're looking to go every night this week? Or
No,
He's
God, no.
He's trying to take over the Podfather.
Oh God, no, not that either. That man, he's like Chad. He does a lot more than you think. So I don't need to be that busy.
no, yeah. Thank you again, Andrew, for being on. Thank you everybody for watching. Like, subscribe, do all the things. Join us on Thursday night for Scare Money, Don't Make Money. With that, as always, go big, go blue, go Jack.
Go Jacks.